Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Keep Indiana Learning's very own couples therapy with your DLCs. My name is Melissa Wally, and I am a DLC, digital learning coach for Keep Indiana Learning. I also work for Hanover Community Schools as an ed tech specialist and technology coach. And I've been an educator for 25 years and moved over to the ed tech side of the space 7 years ago. So next we have Amy Stevens, another one of our DLCs here.
Yay. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Stevens, and as Melissa introduced me, one of the digital learning coaches for Keep Indiana Learning. I am the Project Lead the Way launch teacher here in the South Henry School Corporation, as well as the technology integration specialist for grades K through 12. Recently, I was named an Apple Distinguished Educator and am just 20 years shy of being in the world of education, predominantly in the elementary world. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm Dianna Knox. I am a technology instructional specialist from Clay Community Schools in Brazil, Indiana. And pre-ed tech, I was a lover of all things fine arts and literature. I taught English, speech, Spanish, theater, all those fun things. This is my 24th year in education. That seems really shocking to say out loud. But the last 7 of them have been as an ed tech coach. And then I also am happy to work with Keep Indiana Learning as a digital learning coach and these amazing ladies. So couples therapy has been something that kind of came up through just our conversations about the challenges that we face and the different things that we have to do. And today's topic is one I have wrestled with my entire career. Leading when you're not in charge, leading from the middle, something you've probably pondered at some point. And I think as teachers, we naturally kind of gravitate towards those leadership pieces because we like the content we want to share, we want to work with people. But then we find ourselves in this awkward position of I'm not really in charge. I'm not a person of authority, but how do I lead? And how do I feel confident in that? And how do I be respectful of any boundaries that I have? And so leadership and administration, they're not the same thing. They're two separate terms. And so yes, our administrators, they're our superiors, and we look to them to be leaders, but leaders can be anywhere. Leaders don't have to have a specific role. Any role can be a leader. And we influence the culture in our buildings, in our districts. You know, like Amy mentioned, she's the K-12. I know Melissa works with various buildings. I work with 11 different buildings. So I feel like I think about the culture of specific buildings and then our district as a whole. So when we dive into this and start talking today, you may find some connections. And I also, as I was looking through what we were putting together, there's a few connections back to our difficult conversations topic as well. So I think there's really sound advice that you can apply lots of places. So Amy, we're going to let you take it off.
Yay! Well, this is one of my I've been looking forward to all of our conversations, but I just felt like tonight I thought, oh my gosh. So as a teacher, if I was listening to us, then I would be thinking about like maybe myself, maybe my grade level team, maybe my own school culture environment, or maybe my group of students. So I don't know, as a former kindergarten teacher, one of the things that I absolutely adored about being a kindergarten teacher was that so much of my job was not only to teach students to read, write, add, and subtract, it was to teach students how to be humans in a school environment, right? And a lot of that was to be a leader. And it's hard when you're 5, right? In the words of Jamie Lee Curtis, it's just hard being 5. But it's also hard being 45 and on. So I wanted to share just a little bit along with Dianna and Melissa about, just when we get to the root of being a leader, what does that mean? And so one of the blogs that we were using as we were researching this topic, just to kind of see like, well, what else is out there about this? Dianna talked a little bit about it. But one of the tips that came up was be an inspiration, inspire people. And so I got a big smile on my face because I have the pleasure, I get to stand on the sidewalk every morning and welcome our drop-off students who are dropped off by car to the front of the building. And so I have a choice to make it a great day or not, right? The choice is yours. Now, I may be a teacher, I may be in all buildings, I may be in one building, but that's my way of inspiring people by starting them out with daily actions with a friendly hello, a smile, a wave, have a good day, showing, not shouting, right? That's a phrase I use frequently in my classroom with students. And I invite my co-teachers to do the same when maybe heavy topics come into staff meetings. Show that culture of respect, show that that your daily interactions are meaningful. And then when you inspire people through your daily actions and your interactions with those around you, you never know what battles people may be fighting. And so when they see you and you are an inspiration to them in some way, shape, or form, it just makes that relationship, that conversation, that big task, maybe even the school year, just truly enjoyable. So that was one of the ones we wanted to talk about. Be an inspiration, inspire people.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I think I've told you this before, but I can't say it enough. Like, you inspire me, Amy, because you are always so positive and you have such a way of looking at things and putting things in perspective that sometimes when I can find myself slipping into that negative space that it's easy for us to get into, I just need to spend some time with you because you bring me back out of that and remind me to look at things with a different perspective. And I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I love that. And we live on like exact opposites of the state from each other. And I love that we can be an inspiration. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
And Melissa, you and I know we've had this conversation. You are one of my favorite people to deal with because we share, and it's funny, the connections that we've made. Again, as Amy said, we are in totally different geographic locations, but this opportunity through the DLCs and different things that we've done professionally have brought us closer. And so, I guess the point I want to go there is your inspiration doesn't necessarily have to come from somebody that you see all the time and every day and in that same space as you. Because what that allowed you to do when you have that positive impact in that space, you can also work to build trust with people. You never know who's watching and never know who is being inspired by you. And that inspiration can lead to that trust. And that is one of the things that I think is important. And people can learn to trust you by you being your authentic self, by you not pretending to have all of the answers. I think being vulnerable with people allows them to trust you because they know that they're safe, that they can get some authentic responses from you. And so when we look at building trust, I love this thought of, they say that trust is the most valuable leadership currency that you can have. That was in this one blog that we looked at. And you don't have to be in charge to have people trust you. I think about the people in my building that I used to work in, and there were certain people that I knew in a heartbeat, no matter what I needed, they would be my go-to. Now in this professional space that I have learned the people that I can trust and I can depend on for sound advice, to bail me out when I have an oopsie, because we're human and we all have those. And so we need that trust because people gravitate towards people that they can trust.
Yeah. Being consistent with your actions helps build that trust. I have loved walking to a new building and sometimes the teachers are like, who's this lady? And then it's like when you're consistent in your actions and they're like, okay, I see you. Yep. And then they trust you.
And I think that's a great point. When you walk into these different buildings, you can build trust without being physically present with people because of the way you respond in emails, the information that you share in regards to training, because I think that probably falls into our coaching role. But you think whatever role you are, if you are the same in all 11 buildings or 5 buildings that you're in, that works and that helps.
Not easy, but it can be done.
Truth.
So right along with that, I think comes being intentional. And so without that formal authority, you have to be intentional about everything that you're doing if you want to lead. And your ability to then lead depends upon how intentional that you are with your actions. So what you're doing. And it can be hard because it can feel like you have to be on stage and you have to be perfect. You have to do everything at 100% all of the time. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself, who I am a self-admitted, trying to be recovering perfectionist slash overthinker. And sometimes that helps me and sometimes it really hurts me. But, the way that I have landed and come to terms with that is that I don't have to be perfect. But when I make a decision or create something or work with people or recommend something, I am very thoughtful and intentional about what I say and what I do. It's okay if I don't know everything, if I have to go back and look into it. I'm not afraid to admit that. But, I make sure that I am careful with what I say and what I do. And I think that that goes back to building that trust. So it's okay to say, like, I got to slow down my timeline. I have to adjust it. I got to pivot. And in turn with that, I'm okay with doing the same for other people. Like I give grace to others, just like I give grace to myself. So that I think builds a mutual trust and allows people to understand, like, hey, I don't expect myself to be perfect. I don't expect you to be perfect, but we can be intentional about what we're doing. And I think that helps build that trust, like what Dianna was talking about.
I think you're so right. And I think too, when you were talking, it reminded me back to when I was first in this position and I was so enthusiastic about my new topic area and I loved technology integration. And I would tend to forget sometimes that the teachers were juggling about 75 other balls and technology integration was one of those. And it wasn't maybe their most important ball every day, like it was mine. So I had to learn to be intentional about the messaging and when I shared things and how I shared them so that I didn't overwhelm them and erode any trust I had worked to build up or any type of a relationship that I had established.
I'm so excited to go into this next one because staying cool is one of my favorite things about, you were talking, Dianna and Melissa, about, personal growth through maybe like perfectionism or building trust and so forth. Like, coming out of a kindergarten room and then working in a coaching role and then moving school corporations, it can allow you to really look inside and dig deep. And how do I respond in situations where maybe it's stressful, maybe it's heavy, maybe it's quick thinking, maybe it's a state of emergency. I know that I giggled just a little bit in the state of everybody being told to calm down, like no one calms down. And so staying cool is something that people really do look up to when that idea of calmness, of security, like she's safe, he's safe. Having a really good sense of reason, a good balanced way of thinking through things, especially with safety, especially when things seem very heavy, right? And so when you're thinking about being a leader, many of us are probably hosting conversations at the moment about having to get really proficient in the science of reading really fast. And a couple of our staff meetings have been way up here because there's a lot of unknown and there's a lot of just, fear, right? But those teachers that are within the large space that you're meeting in that are staying calm and are like, it's okay, I got you, we'll do this together. Or it's okay, I asked that question too, I'm still waiting on my answer, but I've got you, I had the same question. Those are all amazing leaders. They are staying calm, they're staying cool when maybe things seem heavy, when maybe things seem unexpected. And when you think about, I love that you said, Dianna, in the beginning that not that leadership and administration is it can be defined as two different things, right? And so some of us, no matter if we're in a state of administration or not, have had to look in and be like, how do I respond when adversities come, challenges come? And those who, have that calmness, that security, that reasoning, that safety, even if you're vulnerable, it's fine. But keep calm and teach on, or one of the things that I find frequently that we say, in the halls when things might seem a little bit. But I don't know, have you guys found yourself like attracted to those magnetic personalities of they haven't flipped their lid? I don't know if your principals have ever done that with the portrait of the brain. Like, here's the brain. And when you get like a little worked up, it's like, whoop, flip my lid. I'm up here now. I'm in my upstairs brain. I'm no longer in my downstairs brain. And so now myself, anytime I'm like walking in the hall, I'm like, anybody else got a brain here? Because mine's about ready to flip.
I am notorious for maybe not staying calm in the initial moment. And so I'm always envious and drawn to people that can. If I take a moment and just center myself, then I calm right down. But I can overreact and stress out, and I need to step off by myself so nobody sees that. And then I'm like, okay, we got this. Every problem is solvable.
And I love that you just said that, because that was another point I wanted to make, was as a leader, again, no matter if you are leading from within, if you're leading from the top, whatever it is, knowing your people, your peers, your team so well that in a moment where staying calm is important, and that, Diana's going to need a minute and then she's going to be just fine. These are the strategies. If you know that, you're already winning at that leadership role of just being that safe, that calm, that secure person. That's the word I was looking for. That's just like, nope, it's cool. She's got it. She's gonna be fine. Just give her a second. I know her. I know him. He's going to be just fine. He just needs a second. He's going to bark right here, but then it'll be really great. It'll be fine. Don't worry. I've found that my leaders that I've worked around that have known their people so well and have been able to stay calm because they know how to effectively, what's the word I'm looking for? Not manage, facilitate those around them. It just creates a really great, safe culture.
And I think that comes from knowing yourself too, to know how you respond. I love being a leader, and I know that teachers feel safe. They can call me, and I can calm them down off of a ledge in a heartbeat. But I know for myself, when there's something that I'm involved in, I know I need that moment, and people don't need to see me freak out. And so I know who in my district can help calm me down. I also know that I have you guys on speed dial. If it's something that I need that, there are those people that you can, and then I need my 2 minutes, and okay, now I can face this problem, and now we can move on. Because that is a personal growth thing for me in that leadership space that I know I need to maybe be better about sometimes in large groups. So that leads us into the next piece. And we touched on it just a little bit when we were talking about building trust and inspiring people, but this is like facilitating connections. And I mentioned before, you don't have to know it all. No one person can be the keeper of all the knowledge. But I think good leaders know who has the knowledge, and they know how to connect people that need to be together, whether it's this person's interested in this and so is this person, so let's put them together so they can explore it together. Whether it's I get a teacher that reaches out to me and says, I want to try this new thing. I don't know anything about it, but I know that such and such teacher 2 buildings down, they've been working on it. So let's get together and connect with all 3 of us, and we can build and grow and learn from their experiences so that you don't have to start from scratch. So when you facilitate those connections, first of all, you're showing that vulnerability of, I don't know, but I know who does, and I will help you get connected to those people. And that makes the entire organization better.
That's exactly why I love the DLC.
I think that shows that like vulnerability, like it's okay. I don't know everything, and I'm willing to be okay when you don't know everything. Like it's almost like modeling that. Like we have to reach out to each other, and that's how we grow.
Mm-hmm. And I always say too, like, we ask our students every day to take risks and to step out of their comfort zone and try new things. and they don't know all the answers, and we tell them it's okay. But sometimes I think as professionals in education, we want to have all the answers all the time. And so it's hard for some people to say, I don't know, but we'll learn together. I don't know, but this person does. And so I think that's a brave thing.
I love it.
Yeah. And so then, like, that building trust is probably the most valuable leadership currency. Diana, you said it earlier. Um, if you don't have that trust, you're not going to get very far with whatever initiative or whatever, thing we're trying to do. We have to have that trust. We have to have that relationship. We say that time and time and time again, and it's absolutely true, whether it's 5-year-olds or 45-year-olds. So one thing that we can do to help that is give credit where credit's due. We have to acknowledge those who contribute and their influence and what they're doing to make a difference with one another. And being a leader, that's a big part of it. So it's almost like a cycle when we are building trust and then we're acknowledging others' contributions. It builds trust, and then we get others to contribute and we acknowledge them. It builds on that trust, builds that relationship, and helps us go farther. And I think one thing to remember is that not everyone likes to be acknowledged in the same way. What works for one person doesn't work for the other. Like, some people want to be called on stage in the monthly meeting and everyone clap for them. Others, no, thank you. Email or a phone call that no one else sees is just fine. And that goes back to knowing your people and having that relationship built already. So I think that that's important, to make sure that you're doing what works for that person and not for you as the leader. Because the goal there is to show, like, I know you, I am respecting you, and that we're one team and we're working together towards the same goal. So I know as a leader, I respect and appreciate everyone's input and roles within the team, and together we're moving farther. And that's what we do when we're giving credit where credit is due.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I've got a section in my weekly newsletter that's the tech win of the week, and I've also alternated in, like, I used to listen to a radio show. It was a kids radio show. My kids were younger, and she'd always have people call in with like their biggest win or their biggest oops of the week. And so then I got the idea of, like, oh, wouldn't it be great if teachers submitted their biggest tech oops of the week? And that way we could all kind of like learn from each other, like, oh, that happened. And it created some fun, positivity. It really added value to the culture. And I've noticed it was really hard for teachers to say their wins, but it was real easy for them to say their oopses. And I thought, okay, we're in a culture of failing it forward. I love it. I love it. So I love all these ideas, for just, truly, like, anyone, whether it's a student in your classroom or, again, like you yourself on a grade level team, or on a coaching staff, or in administration, to just put into effect, right? But you might be thinking about a trickier side to this. And, not all of us are in positions of authority, but we are working with leadership teams who do make decisions for our organization as a whole. And again, that can look as big or as small as there's so many different examples. So how can we be leaders and keep that needle moving forward in a world where there are so many divides with politics and fear and lack of vision? And these 6 ways that we were just talking about: building trust, inspiring people, being intentional, facilitating connections, staying cool, and definitely giving credit. That can help if you are the person in a staff meeting, in the lunchroom, welcoming students on the sidewalk, saying goodbye to students at the bus, doors, answering the phone if the school, admin assistant has had to step out. Doesn't matter where you are. If you can help with those ways, then you really truly are that leader within. And it's just so lovely to be able to share this with all of us, specifically when we don't maybe know how to do this with that leadership team that is the decision maker.
I think that's so hard. This is a perfect day to do this because I am a coach. I'm on a teacher contract, but I walk that fine line with administrative tasks and duties. And so just today, I sat in a room of every building administrator, all district administrators, and it was the other coach and myself. And I don't think she'll mind me saying this, but that is a role she has struggled with, feeling confident and working in that leadership position when she's not really in charge, because I think we're very aware of our roles and we don't want to step on toes. And then when you work in a building like mine, 11 districts, and I know some people work in much larger, I just think this can be really tricky and it can be really hard because you have to know the players in the game and how to, Melissa touched on this. You got to know how they want to be acknowledged and how they want, but even more so, like I need to know how to approach them and what is going to be effective. And so this one came from several years ago when I went to FETC. I always, every single conference I go to, I look for one session that is a hyacinth to feed my soul. And it's not maybe something that is directly pertaining to technology or blended learning or what. It is something that I think will feed my passion for my job or fill my bucket. And so I went to a George Couros session, and I now sign up. I get his email blogs every week, twice a week, and I've read his books. And he talks about leading up. And for those of us that are in that position, and there are some really good nuggets from a blog post that he had that can maybe help those of us in those tricky waters, because sometimes we have to help those who are our superiors think about moving the needle, because change is hard. We don't always like change. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes they have a lot on their plate, and so they maybe need a better understanding of the issue, or they maybe need to see it from a different perspective, because we all have been there where we look at things through our lens. But can we put on the lens of the classroom teacher, of the building principal, of the school nurse, of the student who's struggling? And so putting on those lenses and thinking about those kinds of things. So these ideas, I think, that George shared in his blog that was actually from January this year, I think this is a good way to kind of help us navigate maybe those trickier situations.
So I think that when we get in those tricky spots, because you're right, it can feel a little bit intimidating. Like, do I have a seat at the table? I brought my own chair. Where do I sit? So I think one thing we can start by asking is like, or thinking is like, we are here to do what's best for all kids. And that is our starting point. So if we can answer with an obvious yes, then we know it's a safe time and a safe place to push the point with leadership. So if we're, in that tricky conversation, then that's the time to push back. And then they'll come around to that answer too, that like, yeah, we're doing this for kids. This is not a personal, decision. We're all on the same team. If we can't tell ourselves like we're here doing this what's best for kids, for all kids, then maybe it's not time to push back against leadership, or I shouldn't say push back against, but push leadership a little bit to the next step. We are not in that position to do it. So it seems like it would be an obvious method of thinking, but like when you work with so many people in different positions in different buildings at different times, things can get a little bit convoluted, and it can be hard to keep things straight. So keeping that do what's best for kids thought as that consistent guidepost, I think that's a good reminder for decision making, like where to start. Like, is this the time I should push a little bit, or do I just like let it go and like, okay, that's the decision, that's where we're going.
I love that. My superintendent is just so good about starting and ending conversations with, because we are here to do what's best for kids, right? And are we all on that same page? And it just constantly brings us back home as a staff, right? And so when you think about, okay, are we all here for kiddos? Yep. All right. Then I keep thinking, Dianna, you guys are gonna laugh. When I was looking at this article and I saw ask questions more, make statements less, I started thinking about like a billboard, like ask more questions. And so, we do this all the time with our teachers to keep the students talking and the teachers not, wah, 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 right? So let's think about this from a leadership perspective, right? And Stephen Covey, I mean, he's been around. I remember reading, a lot of the books, leadership books about just seeking first to understand. So before, when you're in a leadership role or maybe a position or just, a human that just naturally loves to ask those questions, others are going to maybe saddle up right next to you and be like, ooh, okay, that was a good one. I didn't think about that. And then, it's so easy to make statements. It can be to just say like, well, I think, and just kind of fire right off, or to dish out all the reasons that you think something might be right or might be wrong. And I mean, there are moments that I look at my principal and then I look at my superintendent and I'm thinking, I am so grateful for you because you're privy to so much information that I don't even want to know. Like, all the things, like you see the forest. And I right now think I see the forest, but I think really all I'm seeing are some trees. So I trust you to really navigate and steer us on that map to the forest and not get stopped by individual trees, right? And so honestly, like you may find from asking these questions that there was content or maybe some kind of like middle ground that you just did not even know. And that goes back to some conversations that we've had about, one of our favorite authors, Adam Grant, the Think Again author, where he really encourages anyone to just invite those voices to the table, start asking questions. And then you don't have to always agree, but to, just give courtesy to the thought of another human and be like, I didn't think about that when I first made my statement, but now I have questions. And so this just really, I'm going to be like very passionate. I'm going to put this on the billboard, like ask more questions.
I love that. And I think in our district, we call it the 30,000 foot view. When we're in the building, we may only have a 5,000 foot view, but all those hierarchies of what you don't know or need to know. And so that has driven my ability to ask questions rather than making statements, which leads me to mine, picking your battles wisely. Because if you have a comment or a criticism of every single thing that the district does, then you become noise. And so you are impeding progress. You are they're going to not take you seriously. And so you have to sometimes sit back, listen, take it all in, ask the questions, keep the kids at the center, and then decide, is this my former superintendent always used to say, is this the hill you want to die on? And there have been times in my recent career where I've sat back and had to say, I don't think that's right. I have feelings about that, but there must be things I don't know. And that's not the hill I want to die on. I have other things that I think are more important. And by doing that, I think it allows your voice to be heard. And you aren't noise that is just confuddling and muddling what's going on around you.
So the reality is that if you are leading from the middle, you're in the middle, you have formal leaders in positions above you. And so I think it's really important that you take the time to connect with those around you, regardless of title and position. Like we keep saying, like the leaders and, admin, but I think everyone around you, and don't hesitate to show that you value your teammates. Just because someone's in a formal leadership position doesn't mean they feel valued. Everyone deserves to know that what they do matters, and know that what you are doing is building trust, which is what's best for the entire district. And we're all just humans just working together for the same reason. And, we want what we're doing to work. So in order for that to work, we need to do it together. So I think it's important that we take time to value those relationships just as much as we value the work that we're doing.
That one stuck with me. You've heard the saying, it's lonely at the top.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about your leaders, I think sometimes they're very lonely because they hear the noise. They don't often have somebody coming to them and saying, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you're putting in. I appreciate the thought that you put into this. I think that's valuable.
It is. You are exactly right. When we were reading through this blog, which, Dianna, thank you so much for introducing George Couros to us, because this is, again, like just a little silver box, a little gift. I know one of my principals used to talk a lot about like silver boxes, which are just words of affirmation and just could be shiny on the outside and just so incredibly fulfilling on the inside. And so one of the concluding paragraphs that I would love to quote from the blog goes like this: with all this being said, the suggestions I shared might not work. Egos often get in the way at every level, and decisions are sometimes made for the wrong reasons. Yet, if you are frustrated that you or your school is not moving fast enough, it is crucial to try something different than simply complaining. When schools work together, the speed at which we move forward in a positive manner can increase exponentially. And I think that that's just, I'm so thankful that we had this to sort of bring our conversation towards a conclusion, because, these buzzwords that we discussed in the beginning of our topic, or beginning of our time today, building trust, inspiration, intentionality, facilitation, cool, credit, those are all amazing and we hear them, right? But how do we actually put those words into action? And I just really, truly appreciate George's way of encouraging us to ask ourselves, is this best for kids? And am I asking enough questions, or am I making just a ton of statements about how I feel? And am I picking the battles that I choose wisely? And then am I showing that I see value in the leaders? And doesn't necessarily need to be administration, but in the leaders around me. Am I showing them that I see value in what they're doing, that I lift them up? And I just very thankful for Keep Indiana Learning to bring digital learning coaches together, because oftentimes as a digital learning coach, you are by yourself in your district. And so it gives us this feeling of, of connection, and we can model for each other how to be leaders in our classrooms, right? Even if we're 5 or 18, we can inspire leadership from within. And so once again, like just from our hearts, like we're so grateful to have all of you joining us for this live stream. I wanted to ask before I recap, Dianna, Melissa, did you have anything else you wanted to share in conclusion?
One quick thing that I thought of as you were talking, I think you hit on that. There are a lot of places where there might be somebody who's a singleton in their role.
Mm-hmm.
That can be really lonely. Yeah. So if you need to work on finding your people, find your connections, reach out to people to see if you can connect with others who do the same role you do. If you are somebody who is, we're all in technology integration. So if you're one of those technology integration coaches, you can reach out to us, find your people, because that makes it far less lonely. And when you find that affirming circle of people that build you up and make you better, then your job is so much easier. So
fulfilling. Mm-hmm.
Love them hard.
I love it. Love them hard. Yes. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Oh, well, team, thank you so much. I mean, as we gather together for our couples therapy topics, please make sure that you are checking out the other episodes that we have just really enjoyed putting forth for you. We talk a little bit about urgent important. We talk a little bit about crucial conversations. We've talked about leadership. And there's just so much more that Keep Indiana Learning is offering, either through Facebook, Instagram, on Twitter X, YouTube, and of course through our fantastic website where you can see just an incredible amount of on-demand content. And so with that, we say thank you. We really hope that you consider keeping an eye out for the Virtually Different conference that'll be coming to you this summer. That just is a really great way of connecting, learning, strengthening, and of course, leading up. And just in conclusion, I say thank you, Dianna and Melissa.
Thank you.
Yay! We hope you have a great afternoon. Thanks, everyone.